All right, we're going to go ahead and call the Transportation, Highways, Military Affairs House Committee to order. Donna, can I please get roll?
Roll call for House Transportation. Representative Banks.
Here.
Representative Geringer.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative McCann.
Here.
Representative Nicholas. Representative Nicholas, okay. Representative Posey. Representative Tarver.
He is excused.
Representative Wiley.
Here.
And Chairman Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Committee, we've got 3 bills in front of us. We're going to go ahead and get started with Senate File 146. And Senator Boner, I'll let you just go ahead and run through the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, this updates our Consumer Rental Purchase Agreement Act. This governs, the sort of like rent-to-own type arrangements, rent-a-center type stores. I think there's even one just down Lincoln Way here. And so I think the idea for this regulation is that, this is oftentimes a vulnerable population that is, looking to enter into these rent-to-own agreements. So this statute exists for consumer protection. The problem that the bill solves is that these statutes have not been updated since 1996. So a lot has changed since then, especially the move to online retail. And certainly this area of commerce is not exempt from that. So that's what the bill does. It updates our statutes to allow for more modern practices that may not always include like physical paper tags, may not always even include physical stores in the state, may include online commerce. So specifically, there's 3 main things the bill does. It clarifies whether a rental purchase transaction is in person or online, regardless of the circumstance. They still have to have a license to operate in Wyoming. So we're having an even playing field there between online and brick and mortar stores. It also clarifies that all notices and disclosures required by the Act can be provided digitally. So think of your traditional rent-own store. We require that we have some tags on there that give the consumer information. This updates it to allow for a digital version of that. And so the third thing that it does is allows rental purchase service providers to be licensed and partner with local third-party retailers to provide a rental purchase option through that retailer that otherwise may not be available. So think of it sort of like a hybrid where if you own a brick and mortar store, but you want to add this option of rent to own in your store, you can simply contract with somebody who's maybe has an online presence, and they could provide some opportunity to engage in the store rent to own transaction method in your physical store. So you can have a little bit of both. Maybe think of like maybe a traditional furniture store, but you want to also have rent to own for furniture or large utilities like refrigerators, that sort of thing. You can have a little bit of both. You can partner with a business that provides that, and so it allows for that possibility as well. Also, I think some folks are talking about how much thicker the engrossed version of the bill is, and that's a product of the Senate Corporations Committee. It came out in testimony with the banking commissioner that they hadn't received a single complaint or inquiry to them. And we thought that maybe that had to do with the fact that we say administrator, not commissioner. So maybe if we make the statute clearer, make it very clear to the public if you have an issue, that's who you talk to. It's the banking commission. That's who kind of oversees all this. And so that was a change we made in the committee. So that's why it's a little bit more robust bill, but it's a fairly simple policy decision.
Representative Larson.
Thank you. So Senator Boner, just to make sure I got my head around that, in the existing statute, they use the term administrator, where in other places we use commissioner, and you just updated the existing statute to reflect what it actually is, which is commissioner. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
had administrator in there for whatever reason, and we just crossed out administrator, put it in commissioner, so. Oh.
Okay, there better not be a bill coming from JT Larson to this committee. Can assure you of that.
Where's the tip?
Yeah.
Apparently he only needs 2 votes, so.
Yeah. Senator Boner, please continue.
Yeah,
if you have
okay,
anything further.
absolutely. So And it's overall, it's a long overdue update to these statutes, which, like I said, it's been almost 30 years. The world has changed since then. So we have more consumer options, more freedom in the marketplace. And so, yeah, that's what the bill does. I'll stand for questions, but we also have Cindy Delancey here who's going to go line by line through the bill, if that's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman. But I can answer any questions about the broad concept, if that's okay.
Committee, any questions for Senator Boner? Gave us a pretty good, I'd call it brief explanation. Seeing none. Thank you, Senator. Is there any state agencies that like to testify on this bill? Not very often we get to see the old banking commissioner come in front of transportation, but welcome, good sir.
Thank you very much. Jeremiah Bishop, State Banking Commissioner. Before I make my comments, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to defer to Mr. Pickard in the back. He's kind of been working with us during the interim, and I think he can work page by page through the bill if you would like to, and then I can have my comments afterwards if that works for you.
Yeah, we typically go, and I would normally say that yes, but what we'll
Okay.
do is we'll just take your
fine.
comments, and then what we'll do is we'll bring the public
works.
and lobbyists up
Okay.
afterwards.
Yeah, so this bill, we've, I think this is a third year we've worked this concept. We've been working with some trade groups to bring this forward over the last 30 years. There's been some issues each time. I think it just got left off the list last time around. The Division of Banking, we mostly just license these entities. Like the good sponsor said, if we receive a complaint, we perform an examination to see if there's been a violation of law. We've never had a complaint since, as far as I know, ever. So we've never done an exam. So we really just keep track of these entities through a license. So this bill, as far as it impacts the Division of Banking, really just updates that, like he said, from licensing each physical location to having a single statewide license. It also allows for a licensed entity to partner with third-party retailers. And so for our part, we will mostly just be amending our rules for the license fees and those renewal fees. This, I think it just caps it at, I think, $1,000 or $500 per year, depending on what type of entity you are, whether it's a physical brick and mortar building, a single license, or if you're going to have an online only presence. So our intention would be to just keep things roughly the cost-wise the same as they are now. There might be an increase for some, decrease for others, but we'll try to keep things mostly as they are right now without impacting too much. The other thing, I think it's in section 2, I believe, that this is something we did recommend from our office, and that is just moving the annual renewal date from, I think it's July 1st to December 31st. So the Division of Banking, we license multiple other entities not related to this, but, mortgage lenders, things like that have an annual renewal date. And so November, December is our renewal season for our staff. This just aligns with all those entities so that we can kind of put them along with other renewals that are kind of similar. We kind of put all other work on hold during those 2 months. So this is just something that I talked with my licensing staff, and making all happen at the same time would help them out. So I think that's fair. But one thing I did want to make clear was I think the intention of this is that if you have an existing license today that would expire July 1st, that's just extended to the end of the year for this year only. We don't want to have somebody pay us a renewal fee and then have to do another one 6 months later. So just waive that, push it to the end of the year. So we'd be, if this passes, we will communicate with all existing companies, just make sure they're clear of these changes and why their renewal is getting pushed back 6 months. Other than that, I think it's minimal impact to our office. The number of entities, our licenses would initially go down just because we license each individual office. So we have, I think, about 25 licenses right now, but that's really only about, I think, between 10 to 15 companies. They have multiple locations. Initially, I think this might increase the number of licensees just because it does allow for now an online presence. And allow for kind of that electronic hang tag and other items to be made. So with that, I'd see if there's any questions from you all for how this will impact the Division of Banking.
Okay. Committee, any questions for the Division of Banking? Appreciate it, Jeremiah. Thank you so much, good sir. Appreciate you coming in. All right. Mr. Pickard, Ms. Delancey, if you guys would like to join us up front here. If you don't mind introducing yourself for the record, and we'll start with you, Ms. Delancey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Transportation Committee. My name's Cindy Delancey. I'm a lawyer with the law firm Holland and Hart here in Cheyenne. I've been a proud member of the Wyoming Bar for going on 25 years now. I can't even believe that that has happened, but it is. And I'm here today on behalf of Progressive Holdings, who is one of the license holders doing business in Wyoming. As already has been stated by the good sponsor as well as the banking commissioner, this is really nothing more than an administrative cleanup. The world has changed a lot in 20, 30 years, and this is really an effort to have the verbiage in the statute stay current with the technology that we have available to us. So with my colleague, Mr. Pickard here, I think we'll just kind of answer any questions for the committee, walk you through line by line what the bill does, and address any questions along the way. So I think I might let Mr. Pickard introduce himself so he can jump in as well, Mr. Chairman, if that's acceptable to you.
So we're actually not going to have you guys walk us through the bill
Okay.
Line by line. So a couple of things. My committee is, I expect the committee is briefed and ready to roll on this. So we will not, task number one, we don't typically have our lobbyists do that either. So
Okay.
we would, if we were going to do that, we would typically have our sponsor. But secondarily, committee should be prepped and ready to roll. They knew this was coming for a good portion of this. So what I will do is I will let Mr. Pickard go, and then if we have any questions, we'll open it up for you. Mr. Pickard.
Fantastic, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, my name is Dave Pickard. I'm here today representing Rent-A-Center in full support of the bill. As the commissioner stated, we've worked on this for the last 3 years. We made it out of committee and good progress last year, and it was, I think, the first one to die at the top of the general file in the budget session when it was coming through. As the bill sponsor has mentioned, and Ms. Delancey has mentioned, this is clearly a cleanup bill from 1996. It has a variety of consumer protection aspects to it that I think remain very important for the policymakers of Wyoming to recognize. And then it just opens it up to the new economy that we're in. It allows for the traditional Rent-A-Center type outfits that there, as you as mentioned, maybe about 25 locations in the state. But one of the aspects of this bill that's very important in updating the regulation is the third-party capabilities. And that opens up an opportunity for all brick and mortar realtors or brick and mortar outfits to engage with companies like the one that Ms. Delancey represents to enter into third-party transactions. And so it opens up quite a bit of consumer options out there in the marketplace, not just going to a traditional rent-to-own location, but could include other mom and pop type of brick and mortar and also your big box stores. So with that, I'd happy to answer any questions if we're not walking through the bill. Ask for
We'll save you the time on that.
your support.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Pickard or Ms. Delancey? Their clients, seeing none. Feel like the committee understands and has a pretty good grasp of what we're doing here. Thank you very much. Is there any further public testimony on this bill? Seeing none, we will close public testimony and we'll move the bill back to the dais. Committee, what's your pleasure? Move the bill. Moved by Geringer and seconded by Wiley. Any amendments, committee? I'm not going to work this bill line by line or page by page, considering we've got 746 pages of documents here. Any amendments, any discussion? Seeing none, Donna, can you please call roll on Senate file I keep screwing this up, 146, and it's not amended.
Okay, roll call vote. Senate File 146, Representative Banks,
Aye.
Representative Geringer,
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative McCann. Representative Nicholas.
Aye.
Representative Posey.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Wiley.
Aye.
And Chairman Brown.
Aye.
We have 9 aye, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Senator Boner. Thank you, Ms. Delancey, Mr. Pickard, and Jeremiah. Appreciate you. I will probably carry that one out there. I know that Representative Larson's also a co-sponsor on that, so we'll figure that one out between the two of us if we can get it up there. So with that, Senator Landon, Mr. Chairman, welcome back to your home stomping grounds here, Mr. Chairman. We have got Senate File 102, and the floor is yours, good sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Landon, Senate District 27, up in the middle part of the state. And it is good to be back to a committee that I got to chair for a little while. And it's a privilege to bring you this afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senate File 102. And as with so many of the bills that we all get to bring, this one comes from just a happenstance. Last summer, I attended a veterans memorial celebration in the summer, and after the entire thing was over, I came out to the front of the facility there at the Oregon Trail Cemetery, and a good friend of mine was standing there, and Mr. Hicks and I got to know each other a few years ago when we did a little bit of work with our Appropriations Committee to set up scholarships for the Gold Star families, service members lost. And at that time, we had quite a bit of conflict going on in the Middle East, and we had lost 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 of our service members overseas. And so working with Representative Nicholas and some others, we put together some endowments at each of the community colleges in the names of those. So at any rate, I got to know Mr. Hicks, was visiting with him this past summer, and he brought up the issue of property tax, which, as we know, a lot of our constituents want to talk to us about property tax. And during the conversation, I said, well, Mr. Hicks, does the state of Wyoming do anything for you? Knowing that he was one of our Gold Star parents. We had lost his son. And he said, no, the state doesn't. I was surprised by that, Mr. Chairman. So I took that, put it in my pocket, and went to work on it. And that's why Senate File 102 is in front of you. As it turns out, we do not do anything for Gold Star parents who have given the ultimate sacrifice themselves for the state of Wyoming. So that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. As our statutes are written now, a service member can designate a spouse to receive this property tax exemption, but that's where it ends. So if a service member doesn't have a spouse, he or she cannot indicate that she wants that exemption to go to the parents of the surviving parents of that service member. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the background on the bill. Just a couple of things to be more specific and get into the bill. As you can see, we go into Title 39, which is taxation and revenue. Chapter 15 is ad valorem, and then Section 105, that's the exemption. And there is a long list of things that we try to do for our veterans, and that's where this bill comes in. I would call your attention to the language on page 2, Mr. Chairman. That is pretty specific to what we are up to. A surviving spouse during widowhood or widowerhood of any person qualifying under the subsection or who died while serving honorably during the war, conflict, or period described in this section, or the surviving parents, if there is no surviving spouse. Surviving parents who are divorced and living separately may both qualify for this exemption. It goes on to, of course, the conforming language throughout. If you go down to the bottom of page 3, Mr. Chairman, that's why you have an engrossed version of the bill. We found some language difficulty there in paragraph H, and so we brought in an amendment on the other side. Other than that, that pretty much takes you through the bill and what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. There's a pretty minimal fiscal impact because fortunately, we don't have a lot of parents who are Gold Star parents. But that's really not the issue as much for me as an acknowledgement, more than the money even. But I know this would be very helpful to families, who have lost somebody in conflict. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Larson.
Thank you. Senator Landon, just a little privilege, Mr. Chairman. I just, too, would like to recognize you've been a real defender of our veterans, and over the years that I've been in the legislature, and acknowledge that and appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I have a question on page 2 where we talk about the possibility of that exemption transferring to the parents. So my question is if the individual leaves a spouse and has surviving parents both, and then the spouse dies prior to the parents, does then that transfer to the parents at that point, or is it just limited to one?
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that question has not come up on the other side or during the drafting of the bill. I would assume that that benefit could then be transferred to the surviving parents. But we may want to get the help of the department on that. Our folks may have a little bit better take on that. I would hope that, Mr. Chairman, in the paperwork regarding this sort of thing, that could be spelled out so that the service member, my intention would be that they know exactly, what we have in statute on their behalf.
I would just think, based off of the way that this reads, is it says a surviving spouse or the parents of a surviving spouse, if there is, or of surviving parents, if there is no surviving spouse, would mean one or the other. It would differentiate pretty quickly there, but committee, any further questions for the senator?
I do.
Okay, please follow
Chairman,
up.
if I misunderstood, I agree with what you just said. It's either or was the intention of the bill and not collective.
Representative Larson?
So I want to get on a delicate matter. So I understand the intent, but what about our highway patrol, police, sheriff, game wardens, firemen, who equally may sacrifice their lives? Are they a lesser species? And I struggle a little bit with that, and would just like to have your, because I don't think it's exclusive service veterans that sacrifice their life for their community and for their country. And how broad do you want to expand this? And if so, just your thoughts on that, if I could.
Senator, please.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Representative, you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of room for us to look at a lot of statutes on that front. The purpose of this bill is pretty narrow, pretty focused in on some folks. I have benefited from knowing about 3 or 4 of these families. And by the way, they would never ask for any of this. But this one focuses on our veteran families who have given probably the biggest sacrifice I can't imagine as a parent. None of us probably can, but it's a tremendous sacrifice. And so this is something I thought that we could do for them. Regarding our troopers, our first responders, you bring up a great point, Representative. That might be a pretty interesting and good topic for one of our committees to take up.
Committee, anything further? I will also just say, we've worked a lot on the veteran side of things, and I think that question, having been on this committee for 8 years, going on my 9th year, that's the same question that continuously gets asked, especially once we bring a bill from this body to the floor. you know, we deal a lot with military and vets in here. We don't deal with much beyond that, except maybe once in a while the Highway Patrol, Wascop. But I think that's a valid concern and something that is shared pretty regularly through this committee. Committee, any further questions? Seeing none. Senator, thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Smith. Bat and clean up again today, huh? Yes, sir. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm Chris Smith from the Wyoming Military Department. The Executive Director of the Veterans Commission, Tim Shepard, is out of town today, as sometimes happens. So I'm representing the Veterans Commission as well as the Military Department. We're, of course, very supportive of this. As Chairman Brown just mentioned, we have touched this piece of statute for a long time. The exemption in 39-13-105 is specific to veterans. Kind of going back to Representative Larson's question, certainly a separate exemption for those who die in the line of duty with our first responders, highway patrolmen, would be a great idea. But that's outside of what this statute does. I did want to also address the question about Representative Larson. My understanding of the way this works, essentially every year, the veteran's surviving spouse has to essentially recertify that they want the exemption. If the veteran's surviving spouse passes away, this bill, changing the statute, would allow the surviving parents then to claim the exemption instead of the spouse that has now passed away. So I think the way it works through the application process addresses that automatic transfer to a surviving parent if this bill were to pass. With that, I'll stand for the committee's questions.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Smith, Military Department / Veterans Commission? Seeing none, my only question, I just want to verify, got statute pulled up here and I just want to verify, this is the $6,000 exemption that is typically extended to every other veteran that's out there. This just includes the parents, but also the spouse of a Gold Star. So it's not a complete exemption. They're not getting all their property taxes paid. It's just that $6,000 valuation.
Mr. Chairman, yes, and it's the taxes on $6,000 worth of valuation, so it ends up being a couple $100.
I think it's about $200 if I remember right.
And I will say the exemption is not for every veteran. You have to be honorably discharged, you have to have a campaign medal, or you have to be disabled. So as you read through it, it's a lot of veterans, but yeah.
Yep.
I think including the Spanish American War.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
No, I think that's in there.
Yes, Chairman Brown will remember several
Yes.
years ago, we finally
Yep.
opened up the statute to say if you have a campaign medal, rather than listing all these different wars. But if having done the research on this, it's literally one of the oldest pieces of statute going all the way back to Spanish American War. I think it was initially introduced in the late 1800s in Wyoming. So, and it's been touched, if you look at the statute, it's been touched many times. We finally a few years ago, I can't remember what year it was,
Probably 5 or 6
tried to
years,
make it future-proof by saying if you have a campaign medal, you're in.
Yep, I do remember that. That was a committee bill. Good little committee bill. Committee, any further questions for Mr. Smith? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Smith. Department, you guys have any testimony? Only if we have questions. Anybody have any questions for the department? Okay, apparently they didn't want to talk to you guys, so welcome and thanks for being here. Is there any public testimony done online?
Could we require stuff in the Department of Revenue and make sure we don't fund you for it?
We could do that. We could do that.
A study of some sort?
All right. Committee, there's no public testimony on this. We'll bring the bill back to the dais. What's your pleasure? Moved by Geringer. Second. Second by Banks. Any amendments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Representative Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, just to test the appetite of the willingness to do this in the committee, I would like to make the amendment that instead of or, when talking about the spouse or the parents, we say and, applicable through the bill.
Motion is to take out or and put and in all applicable areas.
I think these families and these folks are, they're sacrificing everything, and it's the least we can do.
Seconded by Tarver. Any discussion?
Can I ask a question?
You
Of the
certainly can.
sponsor?
Yep. Microphone, please. Representative Derringer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor of the bill, did that discussion come up during any of the action that's been taken on this bill?
Senator Landon?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative, it didn't. That actually did not come up. So,
Okay. Yes, Representative Wiley?
We also like to make Senate bills better.
So true. So true. And
just catching my breath a little bit there.
Senate files, but we do like to make Senate files better. And we're really good at it over here. We've got some practice on it, so. Okay, committee? Yes, Representative Larson.
Do we,
Microphone, please.
so a little pushback, so you've got an adult mother and now, and you've got parents. What about the adult children? Do they not too deserve this? I mean, how far do you want to go with this? And I frankly, I liked it more restrictive. I think it's good, but if we're going to expand it, and we're thinking of ways to expand it, surely we got to be thinking about the children who've grown up without a father now, and should they not have a property tax exemption for the rest of their life?
Or mother.
Or, right?
Representative Wiley?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, thank you. I just also thought that this would help the clarity question that we had earlier, and it'd clean that up a little bit. We don't have to wrestle that later on, and it would just be a good thing to do.
Committee, I'll just remind this entire committee that I tried to bring a 100% tax property reduction last night.
You sure did.
For everybody. Just gonna push that out there.
Point of clarification.
Yes,
Is that germane to this topic?
it absolutely is, because it hit everybody, as Representative Larson was just alluding to, so. Committee, any further discussion on replacing ors with ands? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
No.
Let's do a show of hands here. All those in favor, raise your hands, please. 2, 3, I'll throw 4. And all those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that amendment fails.
0 for 2,000.
Committee, anything further? My only thought on this is just to make sure you guys' timing on this is fine from the department side point. Okay. All right, with that, we will call a question. And Donna, can I please have you call roll on Senate File 102?
So roll call vote on Senate File 102, Surviving Parents of Gold Star Veterans Exemptions. Representative Banks?
Aye.
Representative Geringer?
Aye.
Representative Larson?
Aye.
Representative McCann?
Aye.
Representative Nicholas?
Aye.
Representative Posey?
Where's my copy?
Representative Tarver?
Aye.
Representative Wiley?
Aye.
And Chairman Brown.
Aye.
We have 9 aye, Mr. Chairman.
My head hurts sometimes with you guys.
I think Senator Landon's
Thanks,
probably
Don.
used to that.
I believe Senator or Representative Harshman was planning on carrying this. Is that correct? Okay. We'll make sure it gets taken care of. Thank you, Senator. All right, committee, this is the first of a few transportation interim committee work bills that we had over the last session. This is Senate File 26, Protection of Military Equipment. I see we have Colonel Smith yet again. Shelley, you just don't want to come up and talk with us, or you just gonna make him do it all? All right. All righty, General, we got you. Chris? Yeah, that's, we appreciate
full-time
that.
job.
We appreciate that. Colonel, if you don't mind going through this, a pretty simple bill, however, kind of large impacts of what it actually could pertain to. So if you don't mind giving us a little bit of the background and then walk through the bill.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, this was a committee bill from the interim. It was one of our interim topics. In the Wyoming Air National Guard, we have civilian law enforcement who help guard the Air Guard base at they're not really law enforcement, civilian officers at the Air Guard base protecting the base and our planes. We currently have 17 of them. They are 100% federally reimbursed state employees, so they fall within state employee as a status. They are not, however, peace officers under Wyoming statute. They don't go to the law enforcement academy. They are trained under the military rules of force and all of that, but they are state employees. We have had for decades a hole in the immunity for these people. They are armed with firearms and non-lethal means. They are integrated on shifts with our military members in a federal status, but they don't have the same immunities. Where that comes into play is they are trained and under federal rules from the Department of the Air Force in this particular case, they are told to use deadly force to protect what we call priority assets. I can't give you the list of what the Air Force considers priority assets because it's classified, but after 9/11, we know about airplanes. You can't let people steal airplanes because they fly them into places and it's really bad. So airplanes are an easy, publicly known thing to protect from people stealing. Under Wyoming law, civilians, not law enforcement, are immune from criminal and criminal liability for using deadly force to protect themselves or others, people, not property. So for our civilian state security officers, we have a problem. They're state employees. They're not law enforcement or peace officers under Wyoming statute, which have a limited liability. And yet they are expected, trained, and have the mission to protect certain federal assets. What this bill does, therefore, is clarify that immunity if they act reasonably and apply lawful force to protect these certain property elements that they're briefed and trained on, like perhaps airplanes, that they would be immune from criminal liability. It's one of those things, in the military, we do risk management, what's the consequence and how probable is it? This is a huge consequence for our 17 state security officers, but it's never happened. So the probability is low, but it's really bad if it ever happened. So essentially what this bill does is take Title 62603, use of force in defense of military equipment, and creates a section for these state security officers. As long as they are using reasonable force, given the circumstances, they would be immune from criminal liability. We have, and then on page 2 on the bottom in 19.7.101, we have some definitions. We already have a fairly robust immunity if our people in the National Guard are on state active duty. State active duty means something. That means the governor's called out the Guard in an emergency. Fires, floods, hail damage in Pine Bluffs are the most recent examples. They have immunity in the same way. Our state security officers are not in a state active duty status. They are state employees. They're not peace officers, but they also are armed and are expected to use deadly force in certain situations. So what this bill does in these couple of pages is basically put state security officers squarely in the same place that our state active duty members are in and our federal security officers are in terms of protecting these priority assets. Kind of complicated, but it's really just trying to close a hole for an expectation we have of our state employees that don't fall in an other immunity category. So with that, I will stand for questions.
All right. Representative Larson? I call on people.
There's two of us, one of you.
Representative Larson.
Thank you. So I read this and I think the explanation's right. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything, Mr. Chairman, in here that would suggest a contractor of the National Guard would be provided this. I think using that term employed by resolves that. Am I seeing that accurately?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, yeah, down on page 2, starting on line 15, we add a definition in 197101, which is our National Guard definitions. And it specifically defines state security officer as a person who is employed by the military department and not a contractor. So that,
Follow-up?
Mr. Chairman, and this may be a question to you as well, but I was just wondering on the top of page 3 on that, that title page 19-9401, National Guard members, why we didn't include and state security officers granted certain exceptions.
I think that might be a good catch, but Mr. Smith, do you have any thoughts on that, where we actually have 401?
on the
title?
title, no, sir, between LSO and me, I guess we missed that.
Well, that's us making Senate files better.
Yep. So that would make sense to add in, National Guard members and state security officers granted certain exemptions.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Committee, any further questions for Mr. Smith? Yes, Representative McCann, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, is it 17?
Mr. Chairman, yes, 17.
Okay.
Currently.
Are they prior service, possibly?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCann, they don't have to be. Typically, I would say the vast majority are drill status part-time guardsmen, and this becomes their full-time employment. They're not required to be, but they are required to go through the same training as our full-time federal security officers. In the past, they've been 100% drill status part-time guardsmen, security officers who already had the training, and that's our preference because you don't have to train them, they're already trained. This just becomes their full-time job.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that was where I was going, is what's their training? Is it the same as because I know the SPs, especially you go walking out there by one of them airplanes, you're going down, okay? So is the training the same? I'm just worried about, like, are they gonna follow rules of engagement, that type of stuff?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCain, they are trained to the same level and with the same expectation of proficiency as our federal security forces members. That is, they have to act reasonably given the situation, even with this bill, if it passes. The only way they are constantly trained, and they carry firearms. They typically carry batons and various kinds of sprays for non-lethal means. But when you're guarding an airplane and somebody's trying to steal it, there's only so much you can do if they don't verbally stand down. Or, way in the past during some peace movements, we had people hop fences and take hammers to aircraft. They were subdued because they didn't have a lethal means. But if somebody's driving a truck and ignores the warnings and is driving it right into one of our planes, they're going to get shot at. It's just the training.
Committee, anything further for Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Oh, finally, Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, appreciate you being here. In the definition of state security officer, I'm assuming that does correlate to the same definition in the military department. I mean, are we talking the same language here?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Geringer, that is the state of Wyoming's title for this kind of employee. They're only employed at the Wyoming Air National Guard. It's a specific employment category under the ANI's rules.
Okay, follow-up?
Follow-up.
Okay, follow-up.
Also, on page 3, section 3, we have the affirmative defense effective July 1st, 2025. Does that need to be sooner in case something does happen so that they are able to use that as the defense?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Geringer, certainly effective upon signing is a possibility. As the committee probably knows, LSO's default is it's 1 July. We didn't fight over this. It's been an issue for, I've only been around since '02. It's been an issue since '02. So we didn't want to fight over that. I always am hesitant with bills to change them in the second house because they have to then go to conference committee, but I'll certainly stand for whatever the committee wants to do.
Committee, any further questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any public testimony? Shelley, you sure? Come on. All right, all right. All right. Committee, this did pass out of the other body, 30-0. I think it's pretty clear bill, pretty simple bill. So we'll bring the bill back to the dais, and which pleasure? Moved by Larson, second by Geringer. Anybody want to make any amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Larson.
I'll just insert that and state security officers, if that's the right language, on line 1 of page 3 after members.
Okay, moved.
Second.
Seconded by Geringer. Any discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman, that means that it has to go back. So we might as well change the active date too.
We can touch that here in a second, but we'll make sure we're good here. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Representative Nicholas.
I move to make it effective immediately upon signing.
Okay. Been moved. I'm going to take that as a second.
Second.
Yeah, I'm going to take that as a second by Geringer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, that motion passes as well. Committee, any further discussion? Question? Question being called. Donna, will you please call roll on Senate File 26 as amended this time around, please?
Okay, roll call on Senate File 26 is amended, protection of military equipment. Representative Banks?
Aye.
Representative Geringer?
Aye.
Representative Larson?
Aye.
Representative McCann?
Aye.
Representative Nicholas?
Aye.
Representative Posey?
Aye.
Representative Tarver?
Aye.
Representative Wiley? And Chairman Brown?
Aye.
You have 9 ayes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee, any recommend, or any sponsors want to take this one out on the floor for me? I'll just assign if not. Representative Banks, and we got 2, so we will do Representative McCann. Thank you. We'll make sure you guys are set up and ready to roll with this one. With that, we are adjourned. Go grab some food.